On the night the moon cracked, the sky sounded like ice, breaking over a distant lake. Sharp, echoing, unforgettable. Silver fissures raced across the familiar disk until it shattered into 13 smooth shards, each glowing with its own inner pulse. They rose into separate orbits and arranged themselves in a loose circlet, pearls around an invisible neck. In the days that followed, the world learned what the astronomers could not predict. Every shard commanded a different tide of human feeling. As they drifted, so did our hearts, drawn and released the way oceans once rose to the lullabies of a single moon. Joy came first. When the shard called Silas opened its radiant eye, nations celebrated without cause. Strangers embraced in airports, and factories halted so workers could waltz among conveyor belts. But joy passed, and when Lumen ascended, dull and bruise-colored, melancholy rolled in with equal vigor. Banks closed because tellers wept too hard to count bills, and an entire continent paused its wars because soldiers could not lift rifles through the fog of their grief. Other shards followed. One coaxed lust like a scent on the wind. Another sharpened suspicion until families bolted doors against their own. World leaders built new calendars mapping the emotional tides, trying to predict commerce, crime, and diplomacy the way earlier generations forecast weather. 7 years after the shattering, Kara Elian stood on the seawall outside Marehaven and felt the pull of Veril, the shard of anger, cresting overhead. The salt wind stung her cheeks, but it was rage that reddened them. Across the harbor, 2 fishermen fought with hooks still dangling from their lines. On the promenade, a mother slapped her child for laughing too loudly. Kara gripped the cold stone until her knuckles whitened, forcing herself to breathe past the glow of fury. A copper pendant pressed against her sternum, a smooth circle etched with a double knot, reminded her of purpose. She whispered the tethering mantra until anger ebbed like an outgoing wave, and only then did she descend the seawall steps toward the hidden lift. Beneath the city's storm sewers lay the Argent Knot, a rebellion so clandestine its members seldom spoke each other's true names. Kara's training as an astrophysicist had once promised her a life of research. Now it gave the knot star maps of the shard's motions, accurate to the second. Around a stone table lit by battery lanterns, the rebels gathered. Danton the linguist, who decoded the resonant hum of each shard. Sana the engineer, whose prosthetic arm housed wiring fine enough to stitch nanofibers. And Bran, the former tidal pilot, who could steer a ship by listening to water alone. They greeted Kara with weary nods. Rage made collaboration precarious. One ill-phrased comment could spark a fistfight. She unrolled her charts. Varel will align with Silas and Nestra at dawn, she said, tracing arcs of light on parchment. That convergence lasts exactly 7 minutes. If we don't deploy the harmonizer before then, the next suitable window is 8 months out, and by then suspicion and despair will overlap. We won't have the luxury of trust. Bran drummed calloused fingers. Fine, but the elevator to Stratos Dock is guarded by lunar accord troops. They're wearing neural dampeners that mute shard influence. We try to slip through Rage Tide. They'll see clear as glass while we choke on our own tempers. Kara tapped her pendant. That's why we have these. Chen's last batch holds 3 cycles of counter-resonance. Enough to get us through Varel's climb. Maybe more if we ration. Sana's smile was half metal, half exhausted hope. If we succeed, she said, we'll tune the shards back into synchronous orbit, recreating the original emotional balance. No more global mood swings. Imagine thinking your own thoughts again. No one spoke of failure, but Kara felt it suspended above them, like a low ceiling. 7 years earlier, the first attempt to fuse 2 shards had vaporized her brother Kale when miscalculation sheared a transport vessel in half. She had tasted grief's tide that day, independent of any lunar shard, and it lingered now as a private undertow. Realignment was not just a mission, it was atonement. They divided equipment into slim packs, a portable harmonic array shaped like an orb of interlocking rings, a crystalline tuning fork 1/2 meter long, and spools of sine cable tough as spider silk. Kara shouldered the orb. Its nested rings clicked softly, seeking one another's centers even when idle. Sana fitted the tuning fork into her prosthetic forearm with a magnetic snap. Danton and Bran coiled cable. Time shivered forward. Above the sewers, distant sirens rose, anger-drunk citizens escalating to riot. At the service ladder, Kara inhaled. The pendant's cool assurance steadied her pulse, but she knew how quickly Varel's tide could surge. One by one, they climbed toward the street, emerging in an alley behind the elevator complex, whose needle spiked the stratosphere. Floodlights bleached the launch pad white. Accord soldiers marched perimeter patterns, visors reflecting broken moons. Kara signaled, and the rebels slipped between maintenance crates. With every heartbeat, Varel brightened, its crimson hue bleeding across cloud edges. The pendant thrummed, releasing waves of tranquil countersound. Yet Kara felt anger licking at her thoughts like brush fire. Who gave them the right to guard the sky? Why should steel and helmets decide who touches the shards? A soldier pivoted unexpectedly. Danton froze. Sana raised her mechanical arm, but rather than attack, she angled the tuning fork. A low, harmonic chord rippled, bending shadows. The soldier's visor blanked. His stance wavered as though lulled by unseen lullaby. He turned away. They exhaled in collective relief. Inside the elevator shaft, they slipped into a freight cage smelling of lubricant and ozone. Kara keyed coordinates. The cage ascended. First a gentle rumble, then a roar as magnetic rails flung them upward. Panels in the wall displayed the shards in orbit. Varel's icon pulsed red. Sela's bloomed gold. Nestra's violet glimmer crept to intersection. 7 minutes, she reminded herself. 7 minutes to reorder human feeling. Bran recited sea chantés under his breath. Rhythm kept him calm. Danton pressed palms to ears, fending off phantom static. Sana tuned the fork again and muttered voltage readings. Kara focused on the orb. Each ring corresponded to a shard. By spinning them in calculated sequences, she could weave a chord the moon once knew as unity. The timing had to be perfect. A fraction early, fury might weld to joy, rapturous violence. A fraction late, suspicion might fuse with desire, worldwide paranoia. Midway through ascent, alarms shrieked. The freight cage jolted, stalling. A chord command had noticed unauthorized cargo. Automated locks clamped rails. The rebels swayed under sudden weightlessness as emergency magnets failed. The cage drifted, then began to fall. Before panic could root, Sana slammed her prosthetic fist into the floor grate, anchoring sine cable. "Tether up!" she barked. They clipped harnesses seconds before the cage hit a deceleration buffer. Metal screamed. When motion ceased, they hung suspended above fractured plating, hearts hammering. Kara swung to the control panel. Sparks leapt. She bypassed safeties, rerouting to manual. But the system demanded biometric authorization impossible to spoof in time. Bran's knuckles whitened around cable. "We cut through," he said. "Open the hull and launch suits. The shards are above us, not behind." Explosive decompression would kill them if the internal lock ring failed. Yet they all nodded. Danton handed out skin suit canisters. While Sana rigged the fork to overload hinges, Kara clenched her pendant and whispered to her brother. "Forgive me for gambling more lives." The rupture sounded like thunder contained in a throat. Air wounded them in a single convulsive gasp. Then silence rushed in, colossal and pure. Stars flooded the cavity where elevator walls had been. They leapt. Micro-thrusters sputtered as the suits found purchase. They emerged onto the elevator's exterior spine, hanging above a planet churning with red emotions. Miles beneath, Marehaven glowed with fires. Kara oriented the orb. Its rings spun, locking to celestial vectors. Celes, Virel, Nestra, pearls strung imperfectly, drifted toward conjunction. "Time?" Bran crackled over comms. 3 minutes, Kara answered. "We reached node delta for line of sight. That's 50 meters along the spine." They propelled themselves, magnetic boots kissing steel spars. Accord drones burst from hatches, quad-winged and bristling with stun lances. Danton muttered curses drowned by calm hiss. Sana lifted the tuning fork. She struck it against her arm, and a violet pulse radiated. The nearest drone faltered, circuits drowning in resonance, meant for lunar stone yet deadly to silicon. 2 more veered, one spiraled away into the gulf. But others advanced. Rage surged. Even through countersong, Virel's final crest sank hooks into Kara. Instead of fear, she felt incandescent wrath. How dare machines block salvation? With a single magnetic stride, she grabbed a drone's chassis and hurled it against another. Shrapnel twinkled. Somewhere she knew the shard was amplifying her strength, her recklessness. She fought to retain self, repeating names of people she loved. Her mother, Kale, the rebels, to ground her. Sana's voice cut through. "We can't outrun them. Form field, now." They positioned themselves at compass points around Kara. She extended the orb. Its rings drifted until they hovered, a gyroscopic map. She sang the harmonic sequence, simple intervals the way Kale had once hummed lullabies, but scaled for planetary resonance. The rings accelerated. Convergence began. Cells blazed gold on one ring, Nestra violet on another, Virel red on a third. At the tri-point, silver lines summoned an image of the unbroken moon, ghostly and whole. Energy rippled outward. On Earth below, riots paused mid-punch. People looked skyward, anger thinning with confusion. To lock the shards, Kara had to weave a gather line, a luminous thread of quantum phase, from each shard to the orb and back again, knotting them as her pendant depicted. She coaxed Celes first, its joy spilling warmth through her veins. The bliss threatened to drown focus. She savored but released it. Then Nestra, tidal mistress of calm curiosity, so gentle it almost faded. Last, Virel, a thrashing serpent. She steadied her breathing, offering Virel no fuel. The shard bucked, the orb shuddered. Sign cables vibrated like harp strings in hurricane. Danton chanted the resonant script. Sana amplified. Bran opened his suit's external speakers, letting ocean sounds, real recordings from pre-shard tides, wash into vacuum as modulation. The shards listened. For an instant, Kara felt them yearning, as though they too longed for reunion, for the singular song they once sang. A drone streaked past perimeter and fired. The lance struck Kara's shoulder plate. Systems screamed. Pain fuzzed her thoughts. She staggered. The orb tilted. Virel seized the instability, flaring brighter. On Earth, anger rekindled, fiercer for momentary stifling. Explosions dotted cities. Kara clamped down, ignoring the molten sensation tearing her suit. She visualized Kale's face when he taught her constellations atop their childhood roof. "Patience," he had said, "is the opposite of gravity. It lets you rise." She inhaled steadiness and sang the final note. Light erupted. The shards snapped into a perfect triangle. Their colors merged, spinning into argent brilliance. A beam lanced from each to the orb, then back, weaving a triple knot of light around Earth. Emotion ceased, or rather, settled. Not into numbness, but into authentic quiet. In Marehaven, two fishermen stopped mid-swing, realizing they could choose whether to be angry. Across the world, people tasted freedom of mood like oxygen after suffocation. The sky held its breath. Kara stared, trembling. The shards hummed in synchronous orbit. Their pearls traced a circle like the old moon's silhouette. The orb in her gloves dimmed, its purpose fulfilled. She laughed, a sound born from herself alone, unsummoned by cosmic command. Then gravity returned in ruthless rush. The harmonic blast had severed the rebels' magnetic boots. They tumbled from the elevator spine. Earth rotated below, uncaring blue. Kara glimpsed her comrades spinning, suits venting. The shards serenely wheeled above as if the music of oceans were louder than mortal heartbeat. Her altimeter screamed dissent. No thrusters, no anchor. She accepted possibility of death. Yet peace, genuine and self-grown, cradled her. If sacrifice bought humanity its emotional agency, it was a worthy trade. She closed eyes, whispering goodbye. Impact never came. Instead, she felt upward pull, the improbable kiss of reverse gravity. Opening her eyes, she saw glimmering threads, silver as moonbeams, lashing from shards to falling rebels. The orchestrated knot had not finished its verse. The shards, balanced rather than fused, extended microtides of force. It was not destiny guiding them now, but choice. Having been invited into harmony, they responded in kind. Kara rose, weightless yet cradled, until her boots touched the spine again. Around her, Bran, Sana, and Danton landed with equal astonishment. Suit diagnostics steadied. Even the drones drifted inert, powered down by residual resonance. Danton's voice cracked. "I think they saved us." Sana wiped tears that evaporated in suit ventilation. "Maybe we saved each other." From surface control, garbled transmissions begged status. All across the planet, sensors failed to categorize the emotional baseline. Economists, generals, and poets simultaneously asked, what happens when humanity feels what it chooses? The rebels descended hours later in a maintenance capsule, silent with wonder. Marehaven's fires were out. Citizens cleared rubble together, without yelling or hymn-filled euphoria. Where violence had raged, cooperation sprang, not forced, but assumed. Children pointed at the sky's new geometry, counting pearls that now drifted as if strung on unseen lattice, each shard's glow tempered. Kara walked the seawall again. Waves lapped in patterns uncharted. Neither rage red nor sorrow blue, just water obeying lunar mathematics refined by conscious moons. She unclasped the pendant and held it to starlight. The double knot shone, an echo of the shape now circling Earth. Bran approached, hair wine-tossed. "The Accord wants negotiations," he said. "They claim this equilibrium's unstable, and we should research containment." She laughed softly. "We just spent 7 years proving forced control breeds chaos. Let's give people in shards a chance to cooperate without shackles." Sana joined them, arm whirring. "I ran projections. Emotions will still ebb and flow, but cycles are softer. No monsoons, just tides. We'll study it properly this time, ethically." Danton carried a battered guitar scavenged from debris. "The world's going to need new songs," he said. "One's not timed to celestial panic." Twilight unfurled. Shards glimmered, their triangles slowly rotating, like the point of a compass searching for true north. Kara imagined her brother somewhere in that light, nodding approval. She turned to her friends. "Let's go home," she said simply. Together, they stepped from the seawall onto streets fragrant with cinnamon bread and fresh paint, emotions mixing like dawn colors neither Shard nor scientist could ever fully chart. Overhead, the pearls of broken moon guided balanced tides, of sea, of blood, of sorrow and delight, yet left final direction to the hearts below. Humanity, at last, would sail by its own stars.